Hello everyone, I'm Milo and welcome to my town. This is a kind of video that I wanted to make just a bit of a retrospective to remember what happened. As of the posting of this video, and for a couple of days, the game that was known as Overwatch no longer exists. Let me explain. Of course, you may know that Overwatch 2 is now out, but in reality, Overwatch 2 is nothing more than a glorified update that just replaced the original game and removed some stuff from it. Just to clarify this statement, Overwatch 2 is pretty much still the same game, but at the same time, stuff that made the original game is no longer available. I'll touch back on this later. Overwatch was a game that released in 2016, and I got kind of interest for it roughly at the beginning of that year. Betas for it had been going on for some time and some people had been trying it out. Some of those who were Team Fortress 2 players, a game that I played since 2012, followed and I still love to this day. The gameplay of Overwatch was kind of similar to TF2. It was a team-based game with several objectives similar in between both of the games. Though the main difference is that, unlike TF2 where you have 9 classes that can have different weapons to alter their playstyle, in Overwatch you had different characters with a limited but specific kit that each served a function, and that's how the game went. Since the similarities were clear, and there was an actual inspiration from TF2 in the creation of Overwatch, I got interested in the game and ended up getting it. I didn't get it on release, but I ended up getting it roughly a month or two afterwards. I actually bought it for PC and I got a physical copy, as surprising as that might sound. Overwatch on 2016 became probably my most played game. It was a multiplayer game, so you can expect to go back to it every now and then, but it was pretty much the only game that I played. I got really hooked into it and I enjoyed it. Since it was similar to TF2 and that's a game that I had been playing for several years, I just enjoyed it and I kept playing it. They had some seasonal events that included new types of game modes. They would release more heroes, more maps, you know, as these things usually go. And everything seemed fine. The game was fun, a lot of people liked it, a lot of people played it. Then came the first anniversary, which I believe added a new type of mode. Well, I think it was Arena if I'm not mistaken. After that first year, things started to get a little bit shaky though. The anniversary happened in May, and roughly in June or July is when we got the Summer Games event, the first event of the game. When the date arrived for 2017, to kick off the second year of the game, it was surprising, to say the least, to get the exact same event. Roughly nothing was added new besides new cosmetics. And then the thing is, the trend kept going. Every time there was supposed to be an event like the previous year, it ended up being just the same event with very minor or no adjustments and basically just throwing cosmetics in. This started to get old real quickly. During the first year of the game, as I said, I was incredibly hooked, played the game a lot, it was pretty much the only game that I was playing. But during the second, my hype lowered a little bit. And when we concluded with the second anniversary event, which also didn't really add too many great things, at least from what I can remember, it was already the point where I said, I think it's time to stop. The game had also been changing a little bit. New heroes had been released, but for whatever reason, almost all of the characters that kept being added contained some sort of stun abilities, and this was incredibly annoying to play against always. I don't know at what time it happened, but eventually the game started to shift also to shield spam. Basically, which team has the most shields is the one that's going to win. And there were some characters that could just spam shields so much, so playing was also not that enjoyable for me anymore. After that second anniversary, I lowered my playtime. I didn't play that much anymore. If I played once a week, it was a lot. Events kept happening and they were continuing to be the same ones from previous years, with barely new additions. It was the time that things started to go wrong. I think eventually don't quote me on this. I'm not reading the data and I don't remember, but it's just my personal journey through it. But I do believe the content also dwindled down, like we were getting less maps and less characters less frequently. I just stopped caring at one point. I was not enjoying the game, so I was not going to subjugate myself to playing it. Something I haven't mentioned so far, but that happened throughout mostly sometime into the first year and continuing on, it's just that it wasn't that severe during the first year, is that the developers just decided to cater to competitive players, and also they just put all the money into the competitive scenes. Stuff like the Overwatch League. So basically any budget, I assume, that could have gone into, investing into development to do new characters, new maps, new game modes, they just invested it in competitive scene, which frankly not all players are going to care about, and even if some do, it may be momentarily. I'll admit that I tuned it a little bit for some of the Overwatch League matches at the beginning, but then I didn't care. If I was gonna be watching Overwatch matches, I would rather play them myself than just watch them. I don't really enjoy spectating esports all that much, so yeah. And the problem is that the developers just went into this aspect that regarded the game and put all of their focus into it. Well, not just developers, but Blizzard in general. So that's what happened. I don't have the rundown of all of the bad changes that happened in the game, but eventually they added role queue, which basically limited what you could play before you even jumped into the match. They also went back on their original concept for the game, that was that if someone on the other team is using a specific character, then you are able to switch into another one that counters it. And this even included having multiple of the same hero, of course to a degree. I do admit that it's a bit silly and ridiculous when you stack 6 of the same character, but it was really fun to do and sometimes, even if sometimes was annoying to deal against. They backed down on this by limiting how many heroes. I think you could only choose 1 for each team, and then those rules eventually made it into quick play, the regular mode, the casual mode, even though it was clearly something mainly meant for competitive. Then, as I was mentioning, they added a role queue, so when you were queuing up, you had to choose what you wanted to play. A lot of people want to play attacking classes, so guess what? You had immensely high waiting times if you wanted to queue into a match to play an attacking class. I'm talking about amounts of 10 minutes. I never experienced it because I didn't even want to bother suffering through that, but I know for a fact that it was bad. I think tank is the one that people wanted to play the least, and they ended up like giving priority passes if you went tank, so that then you could get the other roles quicker. But it's just so ridiculous to even think about, but it was a reality. There were many other bad decisions in my eyes that happened to the game, and just completely killed all interest. I had no interest to play, and even when I did wanted to play, I wasn't even enjoying myself. For the last couple of years, they barely added anything besides cosmetics, and cosmetics do not make the game. They're simply eye candy, and honestly, you don't even need them that much. It is a first-person game for the most part. I will admit that it was kinda cool that the outfits completely changed everything, including your weapon. And yeah, you could do the taunts to see it yourself, but if you just care about the gameplay, that is nothing. And in a game like this, the gameplay is pretty much everything. So yeah, this kind of decisions is what just made the game not worth playing, at the very least in my eyes. If the only thing that they kept adding was cosmetics, then why would I care? In fact, I think it was like so ridiculous that they made for the final anniversary before Overwatch 2, the skins they added were just horrible recolors of incredibly old skins. Like, they couldn't even bother to give new ones. That is just ridiculous. And not to mention that despite the anniversary being in May, they dragged it until like September or something like that for some reason. Still with the same concept of stupid recolors of old skins. And then that brings us back to nowadays. As I said, as for a couple of days, Overwatch as a game has completely ceased to exist. Overwatch 2, the glorified update that they're marketing as a sequel, actively deleted what the first game was about. It completely replaced it. It's kind of like an update, but now the matches are only 5 players instead of 6, so you actually got an entire person from a team. That modifies how it goes. I think they wanted to do that to limit the amount of tanks so that there's not that many shields. From my side I get it, but are you really going to replace the entire thing? The fact that it's replacing the entire first game means you can no longer go to that first game. If you wanted to relive having 6 hero stacks or something like that, no, you just can't. The servers are gone because they're replaced with the new version. You cannot play the old game. On top of course, I haven't mentioned it, but it went free to play, so now it has predatory microtransactions all over the place. So yeah, that is pretty much it. As I said, it's kind of sad that you can't even, under any circumstances, revisit the first game, because it's been completely erased and replaced by this update. Some other games don't have this, of course. You have many old games that when they have a sequel, it is actually a proper sequel, meaning a standalone game, and you are still able to revisit the earlier games, assuming that they don't shut down the servers. But that is the status that Overwatch happened. The footage that you've been seeing in screen, it's some that I played on some of the last days of the game. Honestly, I didn't even have that much fun playing. I remembered a little bit of the time that I spent, and I'll admit that first year was really fun for me. The second one wasn't that fun, but it was still okay. After that it wasn't fun anymore, and that's where I stopped playing. I think it was okay, like it was worth it. I did have fun, so let's say that the price that I paid for the game, I don't believe it was wasted. I think it was worth it for what it was, and I did enjoy it. But as things stand out, I no longer have any interest to play Overwatch again. I have uninstalled the game and Battle.net from my computer, and I do not plan to ever install the game again. I have no compassion to play it, so that is it. But I just wanted to give this small piece of my opinion and post it here on the channel. I did this off script, and I think I did only a single take. I'm planning to leaving this in the video, so that is what it is. I hope you enjoyed, I guess, my small tale and my take on Overwatch. If you want to play it, then sure, but it's just not a game for me anymore, and I cannot be bothered to get to like it anymore. And one final thing, when Overwatch 2 was announced, it was supposed to be a PvE thing. Wait, I don't know if single player or co-op stuff. That is nowhere to be seen. It's probably, if it even is happening, it's probably not happening in 1 or 2 years. They just wanted a quick buck and marketed an update as a sequel so they could get more interest. And yeah, of course they're gonna get traffic and interest. People are gonna post, especially when the launch was so disastrous as it was. But still, the shadiness, and I didn't even mention the whole Blizzard thing in here. Let's not confuse the two, even though they're intertwined. But yeah, that's supposedly part of the sequel, but it's nowhere to be seen. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you for watching then. I do believe that is it. And don't forget, you'll always be welcome in my town. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.